All right. It is that time. I hope you are as excited as I am. Here we are in our quarantine. I hope you're as excited as I am. So let's go ahead and get this party started. Thank you for joining me today here at KarlBuysHouses.com on our podcast. Got a little bit of Allman Brothers rolling in the background here. I'm sitting here wanting to go with you to talk with you real quick today about, is this the end of iBuying? Yes, is this the end of iBuying? Now, if you'd like, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at Karl K Realtor. You can feel free to hit me up there. Follow me on Instagram at Karl Buys Houses. Down in the comment section on the side there, you'll be able to see an article that I'm going to be covering for you today. Comes to us from Housing Wire. The article's title is this the end for iBuying? Or is iBuying just a bigger end game? This article was written today, about 6:19 p.m., about probably 45 minutes ago, by Julian Hebron over there. I left the link over there on the side so you can go ahead and follow them and check that article out. Now, what I'd like to cover with you today is this issue of, is iBuying done? And what's basically happened, if you have not heard, Opendoor issued out a statement earlier today stating that they were going to suspend buying properties for the foreseeable future because of public safety was their issue. That's what they said. Then Redfin followed up a little bit later with a public statement saying that they also were just going to cease doing any of that sort of operation for the same reason. In addition to that, it's very difficult for their algorithms to come up with some values. So what I'd like to do with you today is I'd like to kind of go with you through this article and share a couple thoughts with you, I think, that will be helpful if you're a real estate investor. I know a lot of people follow me on Sell More Homes Now on YouTube because you're real estate investors or agents, and you're interested in this article, you're interested in this sort of topic. And as that, I'd like to go ahead and respect that and go into some sort of details that will be helpful for you in your real estate business. Also, I know that many people follow me on KarlBuysHouses.com as my blog because of their Tucsonans who are interested in the Tucson game, and they're wanting to know how iBuyers are going to be affected during coronavirus and how is this going to affect them when they're trying to sell their properties. So I'm going to give you some advice there as well. So if you're following me on my podcast at KarlBuysHouses.com, or if you're following me on YouTube, wherever you're coming to me from, I thank you for going ahead and joining me in your quarantine time as well. So let's go ahead and just go through this article today that Mr. Hebron wrote. Julian wrote down, market shocks are playgrounds for revisionists and perma-bears. Now, this is an excellent introduction that he's put down. He said that here are revisionists circa 2009. Quote, see, I knew the U.S. housing market would crash the entire global economy, unquote. And here are the perma-bears yesterday after Redfin and Opendoor paused their instant home buying, saying, quote, I've said from day one, iBuyers will have trouble surviving a down market. You know, Julian's making the comparison with those people who back in 2008 and 9 during the Great Recession would say that the U.S. housing market would crash the global economy, and that they're going to go ahead and be the same people who said, you know, I told you so, when it came down to the issue of iBuyers. Now, you know, I don't want to be an I told you so kind of guy, but I do want to mention a couple of facts that this was bound to happen. All right. Zillow lost $72 million their very first year in iBuying property. And that was in a good market. What's going to happen in 2020? In the next quarter, you know, I'm watching the comments. If you'd like to go ahead and hit me up in the comments here, I'll be certain to go ahead and interact with you here to live on the podcast as well as on the YouTube channel as well. But what I do like you to understand is that if Zillow had this interesting thought right from the get-go that they would get into this business, and then they ended up losing $72 million right from the beginning in a good market. How much money do you think they're going to lose if they continue going into a market in 2020 that we suspect we are in today? Now, we already see that Opendoor and Redfin have made collective statements that they are not going to be into this game for a while, that they're suspending this for a while. Now, I'm going to further go into this article here, and I want to point out that there's three main ways that Julian Hebron, Julian, right? Yeah, Julian mentions that real estate firms make money. Now, this is aside from all the adjacent firms like title and mortgage and all the ancillary services that brokerages have. But when you think about it, there's three main ways. The first way is obviously the brokerage model, right? Commissions from helping people buy and sell homes, listing and selling property. You know, many times if you're a Tucson homeowner and you're Googling through the Google machine and you're seeing We Buy Houses Tucson, or Who Buys Are the Cash Buyers in Tucson, or however you find the cash buyer for your instant buyer, you might have come across this agent or so, or two or five or 10 or whatever, who say that they're willing to buy your property. And then ultimately, what ends up happening is you find yourself getting into a listing presentation. You know, they're really trying to list your home. That's one way of making money. That's not wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying that's the way it is. That many times that's what happens. The brokerage model commissions are coming from that. Secondly, they'll get money from the iBuyer model. Obviously is the spread when they buy the property directly and then they turn around and they sell the property, right? That obviously is another way they can make money. And then, of course, the third and probably one of the more profitable ways, believe it or not, is the lead model. Yes, I mean, Zillow has made a fortune off this model. You know, when you think about what Zillow has done, it's been very brilliant. They've gotten the realtors to give them the information. They take that same information, market it to the public, and then go ahead and get all the public's information, name, email, data, birth date, I mean, everything, turn around and then sell it right back to the realtors who gave them the data to begin with. And they've made a pretty good business out of being the middleman. Well, the problem now becomes that now they're wanting to venture off into these other areas, such as iBuying, and now they still got these leads. Well, when you're trying to maximize the money, Zillow's been very good at this because they have mortgages, they have the lead services that they sell to the agents, and then of course they have now the iBuyer mortgage. Now they've the iBuyer model. Now they've not done very well because they've lost $72 million in that particular area, but their feeling is that they're trying to get it for the mortgage business, which is big for them. Let's go ahead further into this article here. It says that there are no bids from Redfin, and here's a statement from Opendoor taking similar action. Quote, following the latest guidance from federal, state, and local governments, and out of abundance of caution for the safety of our employees, partners, and customers, we are temporarily pausing new instant home offers. While much of the customer experience is virtual and self-service, there are still some elements that require real-world interaction, including home assessments and repairs. Now, that is absolutely true. All of those things are absolutely true. When you're trying to sell your property, even in an iBuyer situation, much of it is online, much of it is virtual, a lot of it is very hands-off. But there is a point in time where somebody has to come out to your property and take a look at it. Now, one of the good things about working with a local, and I'm just trying to point out some of the obvious differences here, when you start talking about a company like, say, Opendoor or Redfin or something like that, as opposed to a local home investor, whether you be in, I don't know, Boston, Massachusetts, San Diego, Las Vegas, LA, San Francisco, New York, in the height of a lockdown, wherever you are, you can still do business with your local home investors because your local home investors know intimately what's going on in the market. Now, believe it or not, here at Karl Buys Houses, I cannot tell you how many homes I have sold that I have never physically been in. And I know that this is strange for some people to accept and understand, but the hard truth is that you do not always need to be in a property to see it. You don't always need to physically tour the property to know what you're buying, and you don't necessarily have to physically be there to sell it. That's why we have all this stuff via internet nowadays. Now, admittedly, at the county recorder's office, if you're in LA County or in New York and they've shut down the entire city, including the county recorder's office, well, then, yeah, you're going to be in a little bit of a difficult situation. You're not going to be able to sell your property and have it record. Now, if you're in Pima County, we have just a few at the time of this recording. It's 5:10 on the 19th of March, right? We have just a handful of cases, thank God, at the moment that are known. But obviously, we expect that might and probably will rise. For the moment, the Pima County recorder's offices are open. The title offices, the escrow offices are open. Many of them operate from home or virtually. Many of them will operate on a by appointment basis. Now, this is not to say that this will last indefinitely. Certainly, it's hard to say. But when you think about what's going to happen after this, right? That's really where you need to, if you're attracted to this, I don't know, podcast, this webinar, this webcast, whatever, this post, whatever I end up making this into, if you've heard this, well, then obviously you've got some sort of interest in this topic. And I think it's my point that your local home investor is going to be able to do a lot more for you than, say, some of these larger companies. And the reasons are very clear. Let me just dive a little bit further into this article with you, and I'll explain. It says, respectively, Redfin, Opendoor, and Zillow built their core businesses in each of these areas. And these areas that they were talking about are the brokerage model, the iBuyer model, and the lead model of lead generation and revenue. That's how they were getting their money. Now, it said that respectively, Opendoor, Redfin, and Zillow built their core businesses in each of these areas, and each of these were expanding into the other areas before the 2020 market shock hit. Now, that's an interesting way to put this, calling it a market shock, because that's really what we're facing now is demand shock. You'll see that realtors across the country right now are reporting that there is an extreme decline of interest, right? Buyers, they're shut in their own homes. So for example, here in Tucson, it's very difficult for you to go out and show a property if your home buyers are restricted to their homes or not planning on going out of the home or wanting to stay in their homes. They're not wanting to do anything. They don't want to go into a home. Maybe it's going to be vacant. That's largely what, when I'm looking on the Tucson multiple listing service, and maybe tomorrow or the next day, I'll do a post on this. But when I look on the Tucson multiple listing service every morning and I do my 15-second update, I take a look at the, say, 105, 106, 107 properties that come on the market every day. And I see that largely they're properties that are vacant, they're land, they're stuff that's way out. It's not generally, ma and pa kettle sitting at house, with the lockbox on. No, it's not that. Okay, it's not that. And maybe tomorrow or the next day I'll go ahead and I'll do a post about that. But for right now, just understand that the people who have their homes on the market, they're not putting a lot of homes on the market as it is. It's usually land or vacant property. Let's take a look a little bit further in this article. It says Opendoor's revenue isn't disclosed as a private company, but iBuying is their core business and revenue source. And if they can weather this, which pausing on home buying might help them do, they've built another very strong brand in consumer direct brokerage business. Now, this is an interesting concept for you realtors out there. Now, many of you have been following me along through the years on Sell More Homes Now, on YouTube, and have seen the evolution of my business, right? Many of you have been following me along for years. And you can see that I have gone from being primarily a listing agent just going out there and trying to sell for sale by owners and expired listings and things of that nature, to an REO agent, to where I was selling foreclosures, to working primarily as an investor in different companies. I've worked as an associate broker in different companies, and then ultimately working as my own broker. Now, this is the reason. Now, in September 2019, I started working exclusively from home, specifically because I knew that there was going to come a point in time where there would be people who wanted to sell their properties and wanted to go online to do this. And so that's why when I formed my company officially, Karl Buys Houses, the registered name under the state in November of 2019, I formed it with the idea of being a local home brokerage that a homeowner could get a fair, fast offer on their property from a realtor that they could trust, that would use state-approved forms, that would follow the code of ethics, that would, give them a market analysis that was unbiased so they could make a decision that they felt was fair for them and their families. And then you would be able to provide them the cash that they needed so they could sell their properties without a hassle and move on. And that was the plan. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. That's what my entire plan was with KarlBuysHouses.com. Now, I did not recognize or know at the time that a couple months later, there's going to be a worldwide virus that's going to restrict everybody to home, and they're going to be able to then watch me on YouTube or follow me on my podcast at KarlBuysHouses.com. And when you think about it, okay, this is the world that we're going to go into tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. Now, physically, we're not going to be over the illnesses and the deaths tomorrow. No, we're not going to be over this quickly. But there will come a time when the businesses itself is going to change. Real estate as a brokerage is going to change. I'm old enough to remember a business when real estate brokerage meant that you had a business, a building where you had a broker who was in there and a desk and a chair and a big old glass and, behind a big chair and desk. And then you had a bunch of agents scurrying around and 50, 60 agents in an office. And as the years have progressed, I see more and more and more agents working from home. Why? Well, it's convenient. Plus, it's, what's the difference? I mean, from the internet, there's so many things you don't really need anymore that are there. You don't need, who faxes? I can't remember the last time I made a fax. Copy machine. Excuse me. Copy machine. I mean, I suppose you could use some copies, but does everybody just use DocuSign? Or, I mean, everything has changed so fundamentally in the real estate business as it is. What makes you think that the consumer's not going to want their experience changed too? And just follow with me on this, okay? And I might be going off the track, and maybe nobody's listening to me, and maybe this means no sense to you, but follow me on this. If your business has changed to where you're working from home and you're comfortable and you've got your environment and you've got things set up and you got your business humming a certain way, okay, I've been there. I know what you're talking about. I've been there. And now the businesses around you have changed fundamentally. Everything has changed. Going into people's houses isn't what it used to be. I mean, honestly, if you're a realtor right now and you're listening to a client and your client is saying that they want to be one of the 107 people that put their home on the market this morning in the Tucson multiple listing service, if you are a real estate agent trying to give them some advice, what are you going to say about the cleanliness of the property? Doesn't it make sense that it's going to, be now more than ever, it's going to be more important that the home be clean? If the home's not clean, what are potential buyers going to think the instant they walk in? What are they going to think if your home smells like cat urine or feces or God knows what? I mean, in an environment where people are wearing their masks and they're afraid to go in strange places, I mean, do you feel right going through a grocery store right now? Or maybe you do. There's a lot of people out there who don't, and that's to a grocery store. Imagine going through a filthy house. So your clients still want this. And from the seller's perspective, the seller doesn't want the buyer going through any more. I mean, strange people through my house, through my kids' bedrooms. I don't know what the heck they're bringing through on their shoes. I don't know. You see, so when you think about it from a buyer's perspective and from a seller's perspective, this whole idea of going through people's houses and all that, kind of icky. And it's going to be icky for a while. Oh, yeah, things are going to get back to normal eventually. They always do, just like 9/11, right? 9/11 on 9/12 and 9/13, man, everybody had their flags out. Man, there was no Republicans. There was no Democrats. We were all American. How quickly we forget. And now we got a coronavirus that's telling everybody to stay inside. And you're going to think to yourself for a while, well, I can see how I don't want to deal with these filthy houses and how that can be a problem. Well, that'll go away too, eventually. Look at this. It says, ironically, visionary companies skew traditional as they mature, right? It says Amazon opens stores, Netflix produces movies, and maybe certain iBuyers will become brokerages as they get deeper down the 4 stages of disruption path. This is really cool. Check out what he calls his 4 stages of disruption path. Again, if you've not seen this or you just joined me, you might want to check out the link on the side there. This is an article, Is This the End for iBuying, or is iBuying just a part of the bigger end game? An article by Julian Hebron. He says the 4 stages of disruption. Number 1, evangelize instant techie process, right? The home buying and selling are totally broken, and this instant buying process will reinvent the consumer experience. Point number 2, master customer acquisition, right? Weaponize evangelism with super sophisticated and or massive budget marketing, enabling iBuyers to gain millions of site visitors and customers. 3, go mainstream, right? If they last 4 or 5 more years and have millions of site visitors and customers, they're a real estate innovation player, plus a lead source for traditional players. And 4, settle on a hybrid instant or human model. They slowly learn regulation and customer need for human advice on emotional home buying and selling, plus iBuying, plus brokerage, plus lead model. You know, these 4 parts right here that he's talking about, I think are absolutely true. You know, when you think about it, this is what they've done. Opendoor has done very, very well about going out and evangelizing this instant techie process. You look at their website, you look at their process, it's very clean, it's very techie, and so on and so forth. And yes, they are addressing a broken problem, right? The problem of dealing with this filthy houses and going in and out and fixing up your house and all that. I get it, right? Second, master customer acquisition. I can't tell you how many times I personally have gotten Opendoor offers on my houses. I imagine you have too, right? Third, go mainstream. And this is the problem. How do you go mainstream now that this has happened? Because if you take yourself out of the market, then you're going to have a real hard time proving that this Opendoor model, this open iBuyer model is worthwhile. Here, follow me along, right? If your entire business model is to say that you're going to provide fast, convenient service for anybody who has an unwanted home, then hit me up on the website, blah, 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 whatever. And then you suspend it because of this health concern. Well, that's not 100% accurate. I mean, it's true. Yes, you're probably right to go ahead and suspend sending strangers into people's homes. That's true. But what's preventing you from taking people's property and getting a video or a camera shot or whatever, like I do at karlbuyshouses.com? I've told people for years, send me pictures of your property, video, FaceTime. I mean, can we not iPhone and FaceTime everything? I mean, I can do that, and yes, there's a lot of things we'll have to do via contingency, but there's ways that you can solve problems. You can do owner financing. I mean, you have to be creative. And that's what we're going to have to do in the next, however long this is going to be, because people cannot rely on the government forever for paychecks. I'm sorry, that's just not the way this works. Now we're going to have to find a way to work around problems, and if you're with me, well, then you're going to find a way too. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I don't think that the iBuyers are completely out for the count just yet, but I do believe that this shows a tragic flaw in their model, that they can't provide services at all times to all people when everything is needed. Over here at Karl Buys Houses, I've done this for 23 years, and I've got a lot of people in my Rolodex. And if you're a little older, a little younger, I should say, a Rolodex, kids, is what they used to have way back in the day. It's what they call contacts now, I think. Yeah, it used to be a thing you could spin around and tell everybody's phone numbers and stuff. That tells you how old I am, right? Well, I've got everybody's phone numbers here in town. I know the people to talk to get your property out of a situation. If you've got a distressed property here in Tucson, give me a call at 520-403-6227 or text me. Or if you'd like, hit me up at karlbuyshouses.com. That's Karl with a K, buyshouses.com, all one word. And I'll look forward to seeing you the next time. Have, as always, a powerful sales day. Bye-bye. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Take care.